Why the Appalachian Mountains are haunted. They say if you head north out of Boone, past the last gas station and the rusted railroad bridge, you'll come to a trail that shouldn't exist. It's narrow, overgrown, and half swallowed by the woods. No signs, no markers. Just a gap in the trees where the wind moves differently, like the forest itself is breathing. Follow that path long enough and you'll reach what's left of Hollow Creek. Nobody lives there now, hasn't for nearly 100 years. But the locals still talk about it. Not loud, not in daylight. Only when the fire's low and the night outside feels too quiet. Back in the 1930s, Hollow Creek was a mining settlement tucked deep between the ridges. A few dozen families, mostly men who worked the coal seams, and their wives and children living in clapboard houses the color of soot. The company owned everything: the land, the store, even the air you breathed. And the mine that fed them all was called Black Vein Number 7, the deepest shaft in the county. It was said the coal there was so pure, if you touched it, you could feel it hum. Then came the winter of 1933, the winter the mountains screamed. On December 2nd, the men went down as usual before dawn. By noon, the ground above them began to shake. It started like thunder, deep and low, then grew until dishes fell from shelves, windows cracked, and birds burst from the trees in a frenzy. Inside the tunnels, the miners said they heard it. A sound like metal twisting, and beneath that, a voice. Something was crying out from the dark. The foreman, James Harlan, tried to pull the men out, but before they could reach the lift, the roof gave way. The earth swallowed them whole. 42 men, gone in an instant. The company sealed the mine, built a wooden cross near the entrance, and paid off the families in silence. But the town didn't recover. At night, people started hearing noises. The ground would groan under their houses. Tools left out in the yard would disappear and reappear at the mine entrance, arranged neatly in a line. Dogs refused to go near the ridge. Children woke screaming, saying they'd seen men with black faces and hollow eyes standing outside their windows. By spring, most of the families had fled, all except one, Thomas Marrow. Thomas was the father of one of the trapped miners, a boy named Caleb. They'd worked side by side before the collapse. When the mountain took his son, Thomas swore he'd get him back. He built a shack near the old shaft and spent every day digging, cutting through the frozen soil with his bare hands when his tools broke. At night, the few townsfolk who stayed behind could see his lantern swaying through the trees, a single, lonely light bobbing toward the black mouth of the mine. Sometimes, they said, you could hear him talking, whispering to the earth itself. "I'm coming, boy. Just keep knocking. I can hear you." One night during the first heavy snow of winter, a traveling preacher passed through the valley. He found Thomas still digging, his eyes sunken, his beard frozen white. The preacher begged him to stop, said the mountain wasn't natural, that he could feel evil in the ground. But Thomas only stared at him and said, "You don't know what's under there, preacher. You don't hear them calling." Then he went back to work, swinging his pick into the rock until blood slicked his hands. When spring came, Thomas was gone. His shack stood empty, door open, chair overturned, food untouched. A search party followed the drag marks down to the mine entrance. There in the mud they found footprints, bare ones, smaller than a man's, and handprints, dozens of them pressed into the earth like something had crawled up from below. they sealed the shaft for good. For years after, hikers reported strange things near Hollow Creek. Lantern lights drifting through the trees, the sound of picks striking stone, and a faint voice calling out through the wind, "I found you, boy." Sometimes, people found old mining helmets, still warm, as if they'd just been worn. Others spoke of faces in the fog, ashen, blackened, with mouths that opened too wide. And always, at the center of it all, the faint hum of the mountain, like it was breathing. In 1951, a group of geologists from the state university came to investigate. They'd heard the local legends and wanted to study the seismic activity around the old mine. They stayed for 2 nights. On the 3rd morning, the villagers found their camp empty. Their instruments were there, all of them smashed, their tents shredded, but no bodies. The only thing left untouched was the tape recorder they'd brought to document their findings. When the sheriff played it back, the first few minutes were normal. Picks, wind, conversation. Then came a low sound, like metal grinding against stone. And then, a voice. Dozens of them, whispering, "We're still down here." Then a single scream. Then silence. Since then, Hollow Creek has been left alone. The forest swallowed it. The road washed away. But every now and then, hunters or hikers get turned around in those woods. And when they come back, if they come back, they tell the same story. They say the compass spins in circles, and if you listen real close, you can hear breathing under your feet. Some say it's gas vents, some say it's the wind, but old-timers know better. They say it's the men of Black Vein number 7, digging, waiting, and calling out to anyone foolish enough to listen. Because in those mountains, when something dies deep enough, it doesn't stay buried. Now, you might think Hollow Creek is just another ghost story, a campfire tale to keep kids from wandering too far at night. But there's a reason stories like this exist all across the Appalachian Mountains. From Georgia to Pennsylvania, from the Great Smoky foothills to the coal fields of West Virginia, every ridge, every hollow, has its own version of the same story. People vanish. Lights move where no one walks. The mountains whisper back when you call. So why? Why so why? Why is this land so haunted? What makes the Appalachian Mountains different from anywhere else? Let's talk about the truth behind the legend. The answer lies in age, tragedy, and memory. The Appalachian Mountains are some of the oldest mountains on Earth, more than 480 million years old. They've watched continents shift, seas rise and fall, species come and go. And somewhere in that deep time, they learned to remember. Before European settlers arrived, the Cherokee, Shawnee, and Creek people called these lands sacred. They believed the mountains were alive, home to spirits known as the Nunehi, immortal beings who lived inside the hills. They could be kind, helping lost travelers, or cruel, luring them away forever. When settlers came in the 1700s, they brought their own ghosts, superstitions, faith, and violence. Frontier life was isolation and death, wars, starvation, sickness. Families buried their dead beside creeks and never marked the graves. And the mines, The veins of coal that fueled America's progress became tombs for thousands. The Monongah mine disaster of 1907 killed more than 350 men. Many never recovered. Locals still report hearing hammering from beneath the ground. Whole towns have vanished, like Elkhorn, Crumpler, and Dante, swallowed by landslides, floods, or abandonment. Their ruins remain, brick chimneys standing alone in the trees, and cellars filled with water that whispers. In the Great Smoky Mountains, rangers document hundreds of missing persons cases. Some were never found. Others were discovered in impossible places, miles from their camps, up on cliffs no human could reach. Witnesses speak of strange orbs of light drifting through the valleys, the Brown Mountain Lights of North Carolina. Scientists have studied them for decades, but no one knows what causes them. They appear, move, vanish, like will-o'-the-wisps. And then there's Point Pleasant, West Virginia. In 1966, dozens reported seeing a creature with glowing red eyes and wings, the Mothman. A year later, the Silver Bridge collapsed, killing 46 people. After that, the sightings stopped. Coincidence? Maybe. But in Appalachia, coincidence feels a lot like prophecy. The truth is, the mountains themselves create fear. The endless trees, the low, resonant winds, the isolation. Sound beeps, sound bends strangely there. Voices echo where no one is. Animals cry out like people. Fog rolls in so thick it swallows the horizon. Even science can't fully explain it. Geologists talk about infrasound, low frequencies from wind through the valleys that cause panic and hallucinations. But locals say it's something older, something watching. Generations have lived, worked, and died here. Their pain, their stories, their faith, all soaking into the soil. Every mine collapse, every battle, every flood, it leaves an imprint. The Appalachians don't forget. They carry the memories of every scream, every prayer, every lost soul. So maybe Hollow Creek never existed. Maybe no one ever heard a voice from the mines. But if you stand alone on an Appalachian ridge at night, and the wind stops, and the forest goes still, you'll feel it. The air shifts, the earth hums, and for just a moment you'll understand what the people here have always known. These mountains aren't just made of rock and dirt. They're made of memory, of every life that's ever passed through them. And some memories don't like to be forgotten.